Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Super Bowl preview. So today we're going to talk about the Super Bowl, but first I just want to make an announcement to make. So, I announced it on Twitter earlier, but starting with the NFL and the MLB episodes, not every episode, it's hard to say how many, definitely I think more than half, but certainly not every, we may include, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 big NBA stories over that week, and I may comment on what happened. So it's hard to say exactly when, but 3 NBA stories broke out, and when I'm done with these 3 stories today, I will give my Super Bowl preview and prediction. So, 3 NBA stories that I thought were interesting as we lead off with the first NBA segment before we proceed to the Super Bowl. So, the 3 things that happened. John Wall is out 6 to 8 weeks. Blake Griffin traded to the Pistons. And LeBron James Warriors rumor. So we'll start off John Wall. So the news came out. John Wall's out 6 to 8 weeks. And my first reaction was I was worried since John Wall has missed time with knee injuries this year. I think it was over 2 weeks back in late November, early to mid-December kind of. And John Wall 5 years ago missed 30 games, 35 games with a knee injury, and had surgery on, I believe, both knees 2 off seasons ago. So John Wall has had a lot of knee problems throughout his career. And after missing time this year, they decided, just to get the surgery. And the Wizards are 3-0 without John Wall, and Bradley Beal, I thought, played fairly well in that stretch. I really did, and this is going to be Beal's team. I think it'll be up to Beal. This will be the opportunity to show Beal that he's an all-star, which he is. And Beal's going to have to do some carrying this year. He really will be over the next 6 to 8 weeks. So whether John Wall returns at the start of March Madness or at the start of MLB season, that's the approximate timeline, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. So it's going to be out a month and a half to 2 months, so we'll see how well the Wizards fare. They're off to a 3-0 start, so yes, that is a good sign. I think it is, but it's a small sample size. They got a long way to go. There's a possibility that they could fall apart, and this could potentially slide them down in the standings. Since before, winning the Southeast, the Heat are so hot, the direction each teams are going, I think it's going to be the Heat that win the Southeast division. But I still think the Wizards have a shot to do it, and winning a division in basketball is not that big of a deal, really. When you hear in baseball, it's a huge deal. Football, it's a fairly big deal. But in the NBA, it's not that big of a deal, really. So, I'm not exactly sure what's going to go down with the Wizards. We'll have to wait and see. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on that, and if they can get Wall healthy and back in time, let's say they play well during this long stretch and they get into the playoffs, I think that will happen. I think they can be a pretty scary Eastern Conference team again. I think they have a shot to go to the conference finals, but without Wall right now, it is hard to say what direction they're going in. We'll see. Blake Griffin traded to the Pistons. Now, I was surprised by that. Since one, throughout the season, you hear a lot of Clippers trade rumors. Oh, DeAndre Jordan's going to get traded at this point. Oh, maybe Lou Williams will be traded here and there. But Blake Griffin, I thought he might not be a Clipper. And 7 months ago in July, I thought, okay, he's going to leave the Clippers. They're starting all over again. And then Blake Griffin resigned. I thought, okay, this guy is committed to the Clippers. Maybe he wants to be a lifelong Clipper. They gave him all this money. And then, out of nowhere, they trade Blake Griffin. I was not expecting that at all. I really wasn't. Since, for one, it wasn't talked about. It wasn't a story. I didn't hear reports of it. Here's the story what happened. So, I just got a news alert on Monday night. Oh, Blake Griffin could be traded to the Pistons. I thought, okay. And then it happened the next day. And Blake Griffin's a Piston, and they gave him all that money. They thought they were committed to Blake Griffin, and they just traded Griffin to the Pistons, who, let's say about, 10, 12 weeks ago, we thought, wow, they're a nice story. That, maybe they can be a solid Eastern Conference team. This is a nice team that they've built around. I think they finally figured it out. Well, they went on an 8-game losing streak. I think when they got Griffin, and they fell out of the playoff picture completely. With Griffin on their team, they could make it to the playoffs again. They could get hot. And Blake Griffin is clearly their future centerpiece, along with Andre Drummond. And we'll see what the future of the Pistons is. I mean, they've been quite bad. They've missed the playoffs 7 out of the last 8 years. When they did make it, they were only an 8 seed in 2016 playoffs. They're in it, and of course they got swept. So they've not won a playoff game since 2008, back when they had that run before. But listen, it's hard to say for sure what's going to happen. And what happened is Clippers got Avery Bradley, nice player, I like him. Tobias Harris, who got off to a great start for the Pistons this year, and look, the Clippers clearly got something out of it, and they get picks. I think it's 2018 this year. 1 through 4 is protected, so if the Clippers fall down, they'll get that pick. 19, same thing. 20, same thing. And it seems like they're trying to build something. And the reason is they have these pieces. They might keep these players and may try to make it to the playoffs this year. And look, if they're making it to the playoffs as a 6, 7 seed, they're not going to use those picks. In 2021 is when they get it for official. So 18 through 20, 1 through 4 is protected. If they go 5 or above, then they will not get the pick. So it depends what direction they decide to go. If they try to do full-scale rebuild, then more likely than not, they'll get a lot of extra assets. They could get huge amounts of assets. They could be like the 76ers or the Celtics. Who knows what could happen? They could have these great drafts year in, year out. Have 2 chances to get these franchise-changing superstars, and who knows? It might have a logjam. But there's a lot of possible scenarios. But one reason I thought it was done is Stan Van Gundy, the Pistons coach, who also has front office power, has the ability to make trades and draft picks, kind of has 2 jobs. Well, one reason why I thought Van Gundy might have made the trade is trying to save his job, knowing that this is year 4 now coaching the Pistons, and they have not made any progress. They took a step back last year. It looked like they're really starting to improve this year. They have fallen apart, and maybe this is a move to try to save the job, to try to get some momentum going this year and try to have this superstar to keep them competitive around. I think that's why they made the move. That was my thought with it. And who knows why they did it. We'll see how well it works. It's early. We've got a long way to go. Blake Griffin has 4 years left on this contract after this year. So let's just see how it works. And other story. Story number 3. I think it was on Thursday and Friday. I heard these rumors. LeBron James to the Golden State Warriors. Okay? When you do a move like that, LeBron James to the Golden State Warriors, you know what that tells me? That were just rumors. And I don't think that will happen. Since if you did that, I heard of, read some articles of possibilities how they could do it. They could either trade Klay Thompson, and I think it was someone else, I forgot who it was, to the Cavs. I think they had to clear up cap space, maybe do a sign and trade, something like that. So I don't know if they have that money to do it, since they're paying Curry about $40 million. They're paying Durant between 25 and 30, quite close to 30. I think Klay Thompson's making close to 20 on that contract signed back in 2014, has 2 years left. And Draymond Green, I think they're paying about 15, 16 million, something like that. So they have a lot of money tied up. And to get LeBron in there, if you could fit in all 5, I guess Draymond Green would play center. And that would be a super team. They would win 75 games, and they would easily win the finals. And, for one thing, the Warriors would wipe out all possible threats. Since LeBron James the last 3 years was clearly their biggest threat, It was shown in 2016. It was shown last year that no question the Cavs have been the threat to the dynasty. And if they were to get LeBron James, it would all but end any threats, and they would probably be the greatest team ever. But yesterday, I've heard LeBron James say that he did not think that was right. LeBron James' words were nonsense. And by nonsense, what that means is LeBron did not say that, did not say, I'll think about signing with the Warriors, or I'm going to consider it. I definitely think this could be an opportunity this summer. LeBron James said nothing about it. It was just stories reported from all sorts of different sources, whether it's ESPN, Bleacher Report, and so on. A lot of different sources out there reported that news. And what LeBron James said basically is, I didn't say it, so it's not true. So we'll see how that story goes. I don't think that would happen. For one, I don't think they have enough cap space. And two, the Warriors don't need LeBron. They beat LeBron in 2015 without Durant. They nearly did it in 2016, a 73-win team. And last year, with Durant, they beat LeBron. So they don't need LeBron. And they don't need LeBron this year. They won't need LeBron next year. They're all set. They don't need LeBron anyways. And if LeBron were to do that, Miami, that was a big deal. Oh my goodness. That would be... Cleveland fans, first of all, would just be very disappointed in that move. They'd be very unhappy with that for obvious reasons. Came back, won a championship for them, but then led them to the finals and decided just like what Durant did, going to the team that beat you. And I don't see that happening. I just think, all the time, stories pop up. It might last a day or two, and then it kind of goes away. And I feel like this is this story. I don't think LeBron James will consider being a Golden State Warrior. I don't think wants to. And that's not going to happen. Warriors don't need LeBron. LeBron doesn't need the Warriors. LeBron will go to some other team to try to beat the Warriors or stay in Cleveland. But I don't see LeBron going in the story. So we covered our 3 NBA stories of the week. So it'll be interesting to see what other NBA stories come up, but over the next few weeks. And like I said, it'll be episode by episode, whether it's included or not. It'll kind of be a last minute decision on each episode with the NBA being included. So now, let's go to the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl this year will be played in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in US Bank Stadium, which is brand new. And if it weren't for the roof, would arguably, it'd certainly be the coldest Super Bowl in NFL history. But instead, the game time temperature is going to be 72 degrees with no weather conditions whatsoever. So the Super Bowl matchup, Patriots versus Eagles. So this for the Patriots, they're back for the 3rd time in 4 years. And for the 8th time in 17 years. While for the Philadelphia Eagles, this is their first Super Bowl appearance since Super Bowl 39, which took place 13 years ago in February of 2005. This year it is Super Bowl 52. And the Eagles are in it. So at the beginning of the playoffs, my projection was Patriots, which I have not predicted against them in the last 2 years at all. And on the other side, in the NFC, I projected the Saints. That did not happen. So it'll be the Eagles. And the Eagles, I picked against them twice. I predicted they'd lose to Atlanta. And I predicted they would lose to Minnesota. I did not trust the Eagles. So, in NFC teams in the Super Bowl the last 2 years, I projected the Falcons. I didn't think they would make it 2 years ago. I am 0 for 4 in predicting and picking against the NFC champions in the past 2 years. So, here we go. So, for the Patriots, is it a surprise? No, not at all. At the beginning of the year, I thought they'd be undefeated. I thought they might be 19-0. That didn't happen. We knew right away they would not be 19-0. And they got off to a slow start. You saw what they did against Kansas City. They didn't play very well that game. The Chiefs just destroyed that defense. The Texans did it. So did the Panthers. So they were 2-2, right? They were 2-2. Then they played a few okay games. They played okay. Their defense really started to show some signs in 5 and 6. Week 7, obviously, they had that great win against the Falcons. They just didn't let the Falcons score. They completely shut down that offense. And one thing to keep in mind about the Patriots, the Falcons that game, when they lost 22-7, they moved the ball down the field. They just didn't capitalize, something the Falcons did all year. But we're not here to talk about the Falcons. And then eventually they were 10-2. So they won 8 games in a row. They cruised through, including being a Denver team that was nowhere near the same that beat them 2 years prior in the conference championship game. They blew through that Denver team. They won in Mexico City. They beat the Raiders. And their only loss, so their only 3 losses this year were the Chiefs, Panthers, Dolphins. And that Dolphins was a Monday night game. They just didn't play well. Week 14, last quarter of the year. And that game, beating the Steelers, was critical. Now, the Steelers lost that game. But if they lost that game, they would have lost home field advantage. They were this close to being the 2 seed in the NFC, or the AFC. And they just lost to the Steelers. But that was a great game against the Steelers. They won that. They won their last 2 games. Now, in the playoffs, they beat the Titans. They played very well in that game. I sure thought they did. Brady was magnificent against the Jaguars. And the Jaguars almost had them. The Jaguars came very close to beating them. In fact, the Jaguars were up 20-10 with about 8 minutes left, 10 minutes left, something like that. The Patriots fumbled. The Jaguars got the ball back. And the Patriots defense just got stop after stop. And Brady led 2 drives. Danny Amendola was spectacular on those 2 drives. Just went down the field. Caught critical 3rd downs. Caught 2 touchdowns. Amendola, that was probably the most clutch I've ever seen that I can ever remember a receiver playing, is what Danny Amendola did. And they're back in the Super Bowl. And I'm not surprised at all. But the Patriots this year, they were not perfect by any means. For one, their defense in the first quarter was one of the worst in the NFL. They allowed a lot of points. They let teams beat them. If it weren't for that comeback against Houston, they could have been 1-3. They got hot. Brady was spectacular. The defense really turned it on, played much better. In terms of scoring, it was one of the better defenses in the NFL this year. It was top 5, including, I think, it was the best the last quarter of the year. And then, well, Brady, who going late in the regular season, you look at his numbers at kind of the second and third quarters, was about as good as anybody in the NFL, was spectacular. And I think Brady will be announced the MVP tonight. But Brady down the stretch, the last 4 games, did not play that well, really. Was not that dominant. Played okay. And that might have been a concern. Well, just eat the Texans, just destroy that Titans defense. Brady was spectacular. And then, kind of playing okay. Brady played great in the first drive, and really down the stretch, you had a critical second half drive towards the end of the first half, and then obviously the fourth quarter, but in the second and third quarters, Brady didn't play that great, but in the end, did what mattered. Led those 2 drives, so again, another very good performance by Brady overall against the Jaguars. So Brady's been great this playoffs. And should be the favorite for Super Bowl MVP, which that would be his 5th Super Bowl MVP award. Just incredible. What a career. What a career. Brady's, I think, is the greatest of all time. So anyways, the Eagles this year. We'll talk about the Eagles and we'll kind of compare the teams and then So anyways, the Eagles, they got off to a 1-1 start and then they won 9 in a row. They were 10-1. Wentz played great in that stretch. Their offense really moved the ball down the field. They were the best team in the NFL in my mind going into Week 13 against Seattle. They lost that game. They lost that game to Seattle. And then in week 14, Wentz goes down. Kind of tore up the knee there, so Wentz is out for the year. And they have to rely on Nick Foles. Now, my first reaction was, since with Wentz, they were so great. They looked like Super Bowl favorites. Wentz, I thought for sure was going to win the MVP. And then when Wentz goes down, that's out the window. And against the Giants, Foles played very well in that game. I think threw 4 touchdown passes, played very well. And then against the Raiders, they just barely beat the Raiders, a team that had a terrible loss the week before, a team that was clearly had nothing to play for at all, and they couldn't move the ball down the field, really. Foles did not play very well at all in that game, and the offense didn't score a point against the Cowboys. Again, a team that didn't have anything to play for. Foles played terrible in that game. And the Eagles, 3 weeks ago, I thought there was no chance at all that they would beat the Falcons. I didn't think the Eagles could beat the Falcons. I didn't trust their offense. I saw the way they played the last 3 games, and it didn't really matter what they did. They couldn't move the ball. They couldn't move the ball at all. And that clearly cost them right there. I thought, they're not moving the ball against the Falcons. The Falcons are better than them. They're going to win. Well, what the Eagles did against the Falcons. So that game plan worked. Foles did basic passes. They worked. They did some nice trick plays. I thought they ran the ball very well in that game. The defense played great. They took explosive playmaker Devontae Freeman completely out of the picture. So Freeman wasn't even in the picture. And they just dominated that game. Their offense did just enough to win, and their defense held the Falcons to either field goals or punting. And the Falcons offense shut down in that game. Very good job right there. Against the Vikings. So going into that game, I thought this is going to be a defensive battle, maybe similar to that Atlanta game. But I think the Vikings defense is just a little bit better. I think the Vikings will just do things a little bit better than they will. I thought it would be a defensive battle. Well, Vikings got off to a 7-0 start, right? Keenum looks good. The Vikings are looking good. They get a stop. They have the ball again. Then Keenum throws a pick 6 to Patrick Robinson. That just changed the momentum right there. In that game, Nick Foles was different. Played even better. Probably the second best game in his career. Threw for over 300 yards. I believe it was about 3 touchdowns. And look, Foles really did great with the deep ball. Hit Jeffrey deep. Hit Torrey Smith deep. It just worked. Found great chemistry with Zach Ertz that day. They made all sorts of plays. The defense, after that first drive, did not allow another point. They just dominated, whether they forced turnovers, whether they had a goal line stand, or just forced pretty much punts. The Eagles were dominant in that game, and they looked like a team that could win the Super Bowl. They played great that game. It was dominant. So the Eagles deserve to be here. So right now, let's try to break down the two teams. So, coaching. Look, Doug Peterson's a very good coach. And, being an offensive coach, put together a very good game plan against the Falcons and against the Vikings. Called the right plays, knew what to do, did just enough to win. So Peterson might be the best coach, certainly offensive coach in this playoffs. But Bill Belichick has more of a track record. 10 years ago, you know what the difference was? Doug Peterson was a high school coach in Louisiana, did well there, and learned from Andy Reid in Philadelphia, and then later on was the offensive coordinator in Kansas City with Alex Smith and Andy Reid for about 3 years. So, there you go. That could work. Now, Peterson is a good coach, for sure. Last year was a rookie coach, second year coached them to the Super Bowl. When Wentz went down, developed the game plan of Foles, and it didn't look like it was going to work. But they're underdogs both games. I thought they were. Certainly against Atlanta they were. And I didn't think they'd beat the Vikings. Well, put together a great offensive game plan, so Peterson deserves a grade there. But Bill Belichick has won 5 Super Bowls, has been to 7, and has a lot more NFL coaching experience than Doug Peterson. I mean, Belichick has more experience in these Super Bowls and has won more, so obviously the coaching advantage goes to Belichick. I mean, look, there's a lot of great coaches in this league, and there's a lot of great coaches all the time. Bill Belichick may be I think, the best person to ever coach the NFL, and in terms of sports history, is definitely in the Mount Rushmore. No question about that. So coaching advantage goes to the Patriots. By the way, their offensive coordinators, Josh McDaniels, will be the Colts offensive coordinator, so that'll be interesting to see how he works with Andrew Luck. And Matt Patricia is going to be the Lions defensive or head coach next year, their defensive coordinator. So obviously very good coaching right there. And don't get me wrong, the Eagles coordinators are very good. Jim Schwartz, I thought it was quite a good defensive coordinator this year, and I think will be a head coach in 2019. Wouldn't be surprised at all. You know, their quarterbacks coach, John DeFilippo, was mentioned a lot in head coaching rumors, and Frank Wright, their offensive coordinator, who I think could be head coach one day if they continue to work the offense this type of way. So yeah, both teams have very good coaching staffs, but Patriots have an advantage since they have technically 3 head coaches already. Oh, and McDaniels used to be a head coach in Denver too, so 3 head coaches right there, so can't beat the Patriots in any way. In terms of quarterbacking, that's obvious. With Wentz, you know what? Here's what you'd say between Wentz and Brady. Who would you rather have next year? Maybe Brady. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, Wentz is a lot better long-term option. But that doesn't matter. Wentz is not playing. So Foles is clearly better than, or why do I keep saying that? Brady is clearly better than Foles. But here's how Foles can play better. And this will be a very important part when I get to defense. Foles could just do the same type of game plan. You know, the Patriots defense is not great. Good, but not great. So what Foles can do, they do the same game plan that they did against the Falcons, against the Eagles. Whether they need to do short passes, whether they can fit in deep passes, whether they can run that run pass option that they always do with Foles. That's how they outplay them, and the Eagles' defensive line just gets all over Brady. Brady doesn't know what to do. That's how Foles can outplay Brady. But in terms of what they've accomplished, it's no question Brady, all these incredible performances, clutch drives. It's clearly Brady running. I think it's close. You know, neither one of these teams has a 300 carry back who was a great running back, but they each have solid players. Dion Lewis, who really the Patriots did not run the ball very well at all against the Jaguars. That was completely limited. They didn't do anything really until the last play to seal the game, really. But they didn't run the ball very well. The Eagles, I say overall, have run the ball better in the playoffs so far. And I'd say it's pretty much even. I guess I give it to the Eagles. But they each have a lot they can do. I think it's even, actually. Can't say which one's better. In terms of receiving, the Eagles, again, no one's great. They have Jeffrey, who is very good. Aguilar made a lot of plays this year. Torrey Smith, who has struggled at times, is a deep ball threat. Can be. I'd keep an eye out for that. And the Patriots do not have Julian Edelman this year, who's missed the entire year. But they do have guys like Amendola, who, let's see if he can, I'd keep an eye out, could be Super Bowl MVP, picks right off where he left off, where he catches multiple touchdowns, makes even more multiple big plays, just keeps making catches. That's an eye to keep out for Super Bowl MVP. And Rob Gronkowski will play. You know, that was uncertain, got a concussion in the AFC Championship game. There was no certainty that Gronkowski would play, but looks good to go. Looks like will play. Zach Ertz, who I think is a very good tight end, played very well. against the Vikings, but I'd give it to Gronk based on previous track records and just who's shown more flashes of dominance throughout their career. I mean, Gronk can be that dominant tight end that can be almost impossible to guard at times. An offensive line, the Eagles' offensive line might be the best in the NFL this year. Even when they did lose Jason Peters at the left tackle position, their offensive line, and you kind of watch the Eagles play. When I see them play, they keep Foles protected almost all the time. Foles has plenty of time to make a decision, and also Foles is the Eagles make quick decisions, especially with those run-pass options. And the Patriots' offensive line, I'd say, is good, is solid, but has not been great. And Brady at times has been hit at times for sure, and especially this game, that is a threat to keep an eye on, as we'll get to that just in a minute. So I give it to the Eagles, and really no one has a line as good as the Eagles this year. And defensive side of the ball. So the Eagles' defense is one of the better defenses in the NFL. Great defensive line. They do not allow that many points, not that many yards, just great on both sides of the ball. In terms of defensive line is actually a weakness for the Patriots. They do not have any really good dominant players on the defensive line. They did get 8 sacks against the Titans, but at times their pass rush is considered a weakness. And especially going up against this Eagles offensive line, there's a chance their pass rush may not work at all. And the Eagles, and this is how they can win the game. This can be the difference right there. Their defensive line might be the best in the NFL. You have Vinny Curry and Brandon Graham. Chris Long comes in for certain situations. Fletcher Cox might be the best defensive tackle in the NFL. Their defensive line is great. And here's how they win this game. This is the key to winning. You put pressure on Brady. So when they do that, Brady gets out of rhythm. Either has to release the ball quickly, so it feels rushed, or maybe no one's getting open, so has to hold on, might get sacked a lot, might get hit a lot. So they could get Brady out of rhythm and not make Brady vintage Brady, which, asked the Broncos 2 years ago in the AFC Championship game, that clearly worked. And then you go back to the Giants, what they did in those Super Bowls. That's how you beat Brady. You just put so much pressure on Brady that Brady cannot play his normal game, is forced to do a lot of things, so either sails throws, holding on the ball too long, doesn't know what to do, gets kind of overwhelmed Brady. And that's how the Eagles can win this game. Now, in terms of linebacking, neither team has any great linebackers, the Eagles. I think they have two solid linebackers. Michael Kendricks is one of them, and the Patriots, not really. I don't really trust they don't have any great linebackers either. That's not really a strength for each team's defense. And in terms of secondary, the Eagles one is good. I think Darby's pretty good. I think Ramsey's solid, And the Patriots, look, their pass defense at times has clearly struggled this year. I mean, they do have some solid players. Malcolm Butler, I'd say, is a good player, has been to multiple Pro Bowls. And Stephon Gilmore, I trust, made a huge play to seal the game against the Jaguars. So they have some really good. So they have the defense. They definitely have some good defensive players. But in terms of secondary, it's close. I give it to the Patriots. Each of them have Pro Bowl safeties. Devin McCourty has made a lot of great plays for the Patriots over the years. And then you have Malcolm Jenkins on the Philadelphia side. Both teams have good defenses. I'd say the Eagles one is better. Overall, as a unit, they're better. Certainly at the defensive line. No question whatsoever at defensive line. That's the advantage. So overall, here's how it works. For the Eagles to win the game, this is what they have to do. Foles, he either hands the ball off, they have a solid running game, so they get the ball to Ajayi, Blunt. They move the ball well when they run. They make smart passing decisions. Foles is well protected. They move the ball down the field very well. And the defensive line is just dominant for the Eagles, and nobody's open. And Brady's overwhelmed. That's how the Eagles win. Now, what I think is going to happen, I think Brady's going to play very well out there tonight. Tomorrow in the Super Bowl, I think Brady plays very well. And has a lot of options to throw to. And my game pick, I predict the Patriots win the Super Bowl. That is my pick. I have the Patriots winning. Since it's really hard to pick against Brady, I have Brady as the Super Bowl MVP. Patriots win. I'm going to say the score will be 27-17. That seems like a good guess. So fairly close. The Eagles are in it throughout the game, but the Patriots put it out of reach, so it's not quite so close that the Eagles have a shot to win at the end of the game or tie the game. So there you go. That is the Patriots' 6th Super Bowl win, and it was kind of funny. You go back 3 years. When they won that 3rd Super Bowl, they waited 10 years. Now then, in between, they had some very good teams that won a lot of games in the regular season, won lots of playoff games, went to the Super Bowl multiple times, yet they couldn't quite win another Super Bowl. And you remember in Cincinnati, on to Cincinnati after that terrible loss to the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. They were 2-2. Well, you know what? They're 2-2 this year, and they're in the Super Bowl. So half of the time they're in the Super Bowl in the last 4 years. When they're 2-2, both times they make it. So people thought the Patriots were done, right? They were done. They won that Super Bowl, which they very could have easily lost. They won last year, which they could have very easily lost. They had 5 Super Bowls. And 3 years ago, I was starting to wonder, will Brady even win 4 Super Bowls? Tie with Montana? No way will Brady ever get 6. That's Michael Jordan's number. 6 in terms of championships. Well, you know what? 48 hours from now, Brady will have, and I'm predicting the Patriots, I'm saying Brady will have 6 championships. 6 Super Bowl rings. That is incredible. I thought Brady would never get 6. I thought 4, 5, I don't know. So that's 6 Super Bowl wins for Brady. That is 6 for Belichick. And look, throughout the entire time as an organization, for the past 17, 18 years, people have come and gone, but Brady and Belichick have stayed the same. They've been there the whole time. So has Robert Kraft, the owner. But looking at certain things, I can't tell you how many different running backs they've had over the last 17 years. I mean, it's amazing. They've had 4, seems like they have 3 or 4 every year, and they have not had, in a long time, just a guy who's going to get 300 carries and just carry the workload. They have just, whether they have a pass-catching guy in James White, whether they hand the ball off to Dion Lewis and makes a lot of explosive plays, or whether they put in Burkhead or whatever. They've had so many different running backs, it's unbelievable. A lot of guys come and gone. Receiving, they've had everybody, their first few Super Bowls, they didn't have any premier wide receivers, and they had Randy Moss and Wes Welker to Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman to Brandon Crooks. A lot of receivers have come and gone over the years. Defense has changed from Teddy Bruschi and Vrabel to Rodney Harrison. It's funny, 3 years ago in the Super Bowl, they had Chandler Jones, and they had a really good linebacking core. I thought they had Chandler Jones, who I didn't like that trade. I think it's a mistake. I don't know why they did it. Who won the sack title this year in Arizona. Jamie Collins was really, really good for them, but then was traded. A Bill Belichick move. If you think you have any problem with the guy, you just get rid of him. That's the system. And Dante Hightower, who was supposed to be the leader of the defense this year, got hurt in week 7, was out for the year, so they didn't have anybody. So think about those 3 guys. None of them are there this year in the Super Bowl. So that's the reason why their linebacking core, I think, is somewhat of a weakness. But anyways, they've had just so many different guys throughout the year. I mean, got so many guys on offense, defense, offensive line have come and gone, but the only thing is the same is Bill Belichick, and tomorrow's the day, and the Eagles. I thought the Eagles did a good job of building this team too. They had for years and years. Last time in their Super Bowl, they had Donovan McNabb. They had some more good teams, but again, they've had they got rid of guys like that were part of their last successful period. Whether that was Jeremy Maclin or Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy, they've made a lot of changes too. They've built this team up. They've signed free agents like Jeffries, who is going to be there in the long term, and they've built this team, through the draft. They've made a lot of good, solid moves. And look, the Eagles, I thought, were kind of at the crossroads 2 or 3 years ago, when the decision to get Wentz, I think, will pay off greatly. I think it's just the beginning for the Eagles. So in terms, we know about the state of these teams. The Patriots are one of the great dynasties of the NFL in NFL history and in sports history, one of the better sports dynasties of the last 15 years. And look, the city of Boston's had a lot of championships. I mean, the Red Sox have won 3. They could win this year too in 2018. I really think they'll make it to the playoffs. We'll see with them. It'll be a lot of fun to talk about the Red Sox this year. You look at the Celtics, and they've had a lot of success in recent years. The last decade or so, they won a championship. They've not quite won the finals yet, but I think in the Brad Stevens era, I think they may win 1 or 2 in this era. Who knows? Who knows what the Celtics do? And then the Bruins, they won about 7 years ago, and who knows? They've been, you look at the standings, and they keep flying up, and the way they're playing, the pace they're playing, if they keep up this pace, they could win the President's Trophy, and who knows? All 4 Boston teams could win a championship this year. It could happen. Boston's won a lot of titles. It's been title town in recent years, and they could win a lot more. And that could start tomorrow. And in terms of Philadelphia, the Eagles have not won a Super Bowl. So tomorrow could be their day. The Flyers almost won a Stanley Cup in 2010. They fell just short, and the Sixers, it seems like they're coming on. The Phillies, they won a World Series in 2008. They were quite good in the late 2000s, early 2010s, so we'll see what's coming on. Philadelphia's been down recently, as recently as 2 or 3 years ago. The city was really down. They struggled to just support one playoff team. Now, who knows, maybe a lot of teams are rising. We'll see what the future holds in Philadelphia sports, but Boston sports has the advantage right now. The Patriots have the advantage. So, look, the Patriots, this is title number 6. This might be the last one. It really could be the last one. I mean, I think they'll just have to play it by ear. We'll just see what happens year by year by year, and we'll see how much longer this lasts with Brady and Belichick. So, we'll see. The Patriots tomorrow will win their 6th Super Bowl. Thank you for listening. I think we'll try to get it done on Tuesday. I'll try to do a kind of Super Bowl reaction show, and then after that, I may do talk a little bit in the off season, but I think I'll really be transitioning into baseball really after this. I've enjoyed talking about the NFL. I have enjoyed running these podcasts, so thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Oh, sorry about that. I just want to add one more NFL story that I should have been thinking about this earlier in the episode, but a major story broke out yet. We have decided to come back on the air. So I apologize for going off, but just for a few more minutes, I want to share this NFL story, what happened. So here's a story that broke out this week. Alex Smith was traded to the Redskins. That's right. Alex Smith was traded to the Redskins. This means 2 things. 1, The Redskins have moved on from Kirk Cousins. They have moved on from Kirk Cousins. So let me ask you this question. 6 years ago, someone would ask you, who's going to be the Redskins starting quarterback in 2018? Is it going to be RG3? Is it going to be Kirk Cousins? Or will it be Alex Smith? Imagine if somebody asked me that question. Now, I was somewhat surprised by the trade, considering that, one, this means two things. One, the Chiefs are taking a clear risk. They are taking a risk. Alex Smith had the best year of his career. At times looked like an MVP candidate. It's unfortunately that meltdown against the Titans. But with Smith, I thought they should have kept Smith for one more year, giving Mahomes a little more training, being that raw, kind of to make another run with Alex Smith, see if they can do this before they pass the torch. Kind of like, this reminds me somewhat of, it's nowhere near the scale, but somewhat of Brett Favre losing that conference championship game and moving on from him, like the Packers did. But I would want to have kept Alex Smith for one more year in Kansas City to try to see how it goes. Hopefully it still works, just to make sure that Mahomes is ready, in case he wasn't. And with Smith having the best year of his career, changing a lot, the Chiefs decided that they are ready for Mahomes. Now Mahomes played in one game this year, did okay. And look, we'll have a whole offseason to get ready. We'll have the preseason to get ready. Mahomes has a lot to learn, but also has a lot of time. And really got to sit and observe and learn for a whole year. And if Mahomes is ready, great. Is the next great quarterback. We'll see what the Chiefs can do. But one thing that might do in the AFC West is if Mahomes is not ready to go, the Chiefs do not have a great defense right now. Maybe, and their offense tends to struggle. The AFC West could be wide open this year. It really could be wide open, considering what are the Raiders? Did the Chargers, who got off to an 0-4 start, really put it together? Are they the favorites? Who knows? But that's just immediate speculation. And two, what this means for the Redskins is they've moved on from Kirk Cousins. They have moved on from Kirk Cousins, which, look, the last two off seasons, and I talked about this really at length back in July, the Redskins wanted to have Kirk Cousins. They weren't sure whether they wanted to do a long-term contract or do an extension. They were unsure. So what they did is Cousins played very well in 2015, led them to the playoffs, division title. They did not extend Cousins. Instead, they did the franchise tag. Cousins threw for nearly 5,000 yards and almost led them to the playoffs again. Unfortunately, they had a bad Week 17 loss, so then this year they went with Cousins again on the franchise tag. And listen, they should have taken what was given to them in 2016 offseason. But instead, they waited. The price figure went up. They waited again. It went up again, and they would have to pay Cousins close to $30 million a year this year. So they decided to move on from Kirk Cousins, and they have chosen Alex Smith to be their quarterback. How well will that fare? Well, I think the Redskins, I don't know how much better they'll be. I'm not sure how much better Smith really is than Cousins. I think either they're about the same or a little bit better. That makes them playoff contenders, but we'll see. Now, Kirk Cousins will be quite a commodity this offseason, whether Cousins goes to Arizona, Cleveland. I've heard Denver as possibilities. Who knows for sure? That'll definitely be a big story about a month from now as free agency nears. But we'll see. But that was an interesting decision. So the truth is, the final two big pieces are the Chiefs have moved on from Smith and are ready for Mahomes to play, and the Redskins are ready to move on from Kirk Cousins. So there you go. Those are the two stories. Very interesting. This will really affect a lot this offseason. So thank you for listening. And believe it or not, this is the last NFL game of the year. After this, there won't be any more NFL games, regular season games, until September. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. And this time, we really are officially signing off.